All right, before you begin this, make sure you have either the TI-84 with you or 83, like one of these graphing calculators, or you can borrow a TI Nspire from the front of the room. Either one of these should work, but make sure you have one of them available, otherwise you won't be able to do this lesson. So this lesson is all about area under the curve. And rather than just staring at this curve and looking at this and all this information, really just remember these are z-scores, and we're going to calculate z-scores to try to answer questions that look like this. So let's consider the ACT exam, which has an average of 20.8 and a deviation of 4.8. What percent of students will score below a 30? So if we take a look, here's where a 30 is, somewhere around there. So what percent of students are going to score below that? If you look at this curve and think about this curve as one whole or 100%, there's a lot of students that are score below a 30 on the ACT exam. Most of them will. 90, 95, 98%, somewhere around there is really high. It's a good idea to always sketch this curve first so you get an idea of what your value should be before you go and do the problem. So what percent of students score below 30? First thing we need to do is convert this to a z-score. Now, in our heads, we should know that z-score here, 0, 1, 2, -1, -2. We scored a 30, which is somewhere around here. So our z-score should be like 1.9, 1.7, somewhere around there, high ones. So let's calculate it real quick to make sure we got our math down. So our z-score is going to be our 30, which is the score we got, minus the average of 20.8 divided by the deviation of 4.8. So 30 minus 20.8 equals divided by 4.8. Don't do it all in one line. You should get an answer of 1.916 repeating. So we're going to always round these to 2 decimal places. So for z-scores, we're going to stick to 2 decimal places always when you're calculating z-score. So we got a z-score of 1.92. So now, in order to find the percent, we're going to use this calculator to do that. I'll show you how to use it on here or the Nspire. They're both the same, similar. So what you're going to do for a TI calculator like this, one of the 84 pluses or 83s, you're going to hit second and then the vars key and go to your distribution screen. And you're going to go down to where it says normal CDF. That stands for normal cumulative distribution frequency, which is what this is. And hit enter. And what they give you is they say lower bound, upper bound. Now here we want to say score below a 30. So our lower bound is negative infinity. There's no button that says negative infinity. We just need to go way far down. Now, if you're doing below, you're going to use -10. If you're using above, like if we want to know what percent score above 30, we would use an upper bound of +10 and the lower bound of our z-score. So in this case, we're going to do a lower bound of -10. We're going to go way down here for our lower bound. And our upper bound, we're going to use 1.92. And then go down to click paste, hit enter, and 0.9725, which is around 97% of students will score below a 30 on the ACT. Now, let's say we want to get what percent of students score between 25 and 30. So now, if I go back to here, we want to look at, let's say, the percent of students that are scoring between 25 and 30. So that's here to here. That's in green. That's not nearly as much, maybe 20, 25, 30% based on our sketch. So let's calculate the z-score. We already know what the z-score of 30 is, right, which is the 1.92. Let's get the z-score of 25. So this gives us a z-score of 0.875. So now we have 2 z-scores. We want to know what's the probability that they score between 25 and 30. Well, let's go back to our second vars distribution, go to normal CDF. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to put in our smaller number for our lower bound and our larger number for the upper bound. So 0.875 and then 1.92, again, down to paste, and around 16%. So this would be 0.16, say 34. So about 16% of students will score between here and here. Now, one other way they can ask this question is what score will put you in the top 10%? So now they're looking at a percentage problem. Now, before I jump onto that, let me show you real quick how to get to the same exact screen if you were going to use one of the Nspires. So if you're going to use one of the Nspires, how would you get to those percentages screens? Well, in order to do that, what you're going to do is just go to your turn the calculator on, go to your calculate screen. What you're going to do is you're going to hit menu, see where it says statistics, distributions, normal CDF. And if you look, it has the same exact thing that the other calculator had, lower bound, upper bound in here. And then just, so we could put 0.875 and then 1.92. And then if you hit OK, it would give us the same percentage that we got here. So for the sake of going forward, I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this other calculator just so I don't have to go back and forth. Now, the only other way that we have left to ask a problem is what score will put you in the top 10%. A lot of people are wondering, okay, so here is my ACT exam. What score will put me to where this is the top 10%? Well, what that means is I want to score better than 90% of everybody else. All right, so if I want to be in the top 10%, I want to score better than 90% of everybody else. So where this problem is a little bit different is we are not going to calculate a percentage because they gave it to us. What we're going to do is what we call the inverse. So we're going to go here to inverse norm. And we want to know 90% area. And if you notice, you might not have left, center, or right. If you don't have this where you can choose left, center, or right, as far as the 90%, just hit the 90%. So what I can do is I'm going to put 90% to the left. You could also put in 10% to the right, and you could click over here because it says 10% to the right. Either one. I'm going to stick though with the 90% because most of you probably do not have an upgraded calculator like this. So if you don't have that and it just says area, mu, and sigma, it's going to be to the left. Okay, so it's going to always be the left. So you just have to figure out what percentage is on the left-hand side here. And what that will give you is a z-score. So if you want to score in the top 10%, you have to have a z-score of 1.28. And why does that help us? Because we just need to know what z-score puts us there, which is 1.28. And now we can go back and solve for x just like we did before, where you take this, multiply it here, and we just do 4.8 times 1.28, and then add 20.8 when we're done, and we get 26.944 is x. So let's just round to 27. So if you want to score better than 10%, or the top 10%, you need a 27 on your ACTs. I hope this helps. And what I'm going to do is put together another video with the solutions to the second page. But I would suggest start the second page, see what you can do on your own, and then I'll put a video together with the solutions, hopefully answer any questions you have.